Hello, welcome to Startup Sac's Sacramento Startups Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Bennett, and today I have with me Carolyn Peer, who is the founder of Humaxa, which placed second at our very first Startup Sac warm-up pitch competition back last December. So welcome, Carolyn, and let's start out having you just introduce yourself, your background, and then telling people about your startup, what it is, what it does, how it started.
Sure, sounds great, and thanks so much for having me on the podcast, Jeff. I really appreciate it. So very early in my career, I studied instructional technology and cognitive neuroscience because I was fascinated with how people acquired information, how machines acquired information, and how it was possible to really take the two and marry them up and really get the best of both worlds. Machines helping people do people things and people helping machines do machine things. It's all good, right? So I used this and started working in defense and moved on to high tech, and then eventually landed in HR technology and started working for an early stage startup called Pro Business in the HR tech space.
And this is where in the Bay Area or?
Pleasanton,
Okay.
Pleasanton, California, yes. And stayed there, and then in 2003, we were acquired by ADP. And they kind of just left us alone for a number of years, kind of learned what we were doing. We had incredibly high client retention, and they wanted to look at our service model, wanted to see how we were doing things. And so it wasn't actually until 2007, 4 years later, that this startup that we worked for was kind of absorbed into the greater organization. And at that time, I ended up taking a role with ADP, running one of their learning and performance departments out of national accounts in Atlanta.
And what is ADP?
They do outsourced payroll, HR, benefits, kind of back office processing for HR technology. And so as a part of that, all of a sudden I had teams that were all over the country that I was managing, and they were putting together learning solutions, and I had the opportunity to speak with clients over this very long period of time, almost 15 years, and literally hundreds of conversations with clients. And so they would talk to me about their biggest problems. And one of the biggest problems that they talked about was having to constantly send new people to our training programs to figure out how to implement our software, how to configure it, how, all these things, because they were constantly having turnover. And they would say things like, well, Carolyn, you guys are an HR tech company. Can't you help us with this? You must have gobs of data. And it was true. And yet I never really felt like I had a good answer. So I would ask them, well, how are you currently solving these problems? A lot of times they would say, oh, we administer surveys to see what how our employees feel, what's making them want to stay or what's making them want to go. And then we try to implement actions based on that. And it was very coincidental. On one side of my ear, I was hearing all these clients talk about this. On the other side, I had my own teams who I was administering these surveys to, and they would come back to me and say, Carolyn, do we really have to do these surveys? Can I just put all 5s? Because nothing ever really happens anyways. This, it's a big waste of time. If we put anything lower than a 5, it means we're gonna have to do a whole bunch of extra work. And so I had, these two messages. First of all, I'm thinking, okay, the employees and employers are not communicating properly. The system is broken, it's not working. And so I kind of said to myself, Carolyn, this is an opportunity to really make a difference in this communication that's not taking place. And so I left ADP in 2017 and convinced 2 colleagues to join me in founding Humaxa. And since then, we've been moving forward. It took us about 9 months to release our private beta program. We've had a bunch of awesome clients get on board, help us really figure out how to make this work.
So let's do what's the 30-second elevator pitch of what Humaxa is?
So it's an employee retention chatbot.
Okay.
And so instead of people having to wait for a survey to show up, it will periodically reach out to people and say, hey, Jeff, what do you like about working here? What do you dislike? are you getting the professional development that you're looking for? Do you feel like you're recognized when you when you're able to accomplish something big? Do you feel like you're paid fairly? Do you feel like we recognize people from diverse backgrounds and make them feel included? And it's a conversation. It's not a survey. It's a conversation.
And this is digital? It pops
It's
up on
all
your computer.
digital. It's all through a chatbot assistant, almost like Alexa for employee engagement and retention.
I kind of think that little clippy thing that Microsoft Clippy pops up.
Oh no, not Flippy. No, it's yeah. I can talk more about the kind of some of the results we're seeing, but so far it's been pretty good.
Okay.
But one of the greatest things that we're seeing is that there's about 25 to 50% greater engagement with this fun interactive chatbot who's carrying on conversations that's also trying to take action based on what people say. So if, for example, if I'm the chatbot and you're the employee, I say, hey Jeff, how do you feel about the professional development that you're getting? And if you say to me, well, Carolyn, it's okay, but I think we could be doing a better job. The chatbot might come back and say, well, what kinds of things are you interested in learning more about? Do you want to know more about JavaScript? Or do you want to practice public speaking? Or are you interested in communication strategies? Or it could be a whole number of things, and you can initiate conversations and topics that it didn't even know existed yet, and it will try to take action, maybe put you in touch with other people who have common interests or other people who want to practice public speaking, or maybe a mentor. So, I mean, the kinds of conversations it can have are not limited to what it already knows about.
So this is you said it's a chatbot. Is this AI machine learning run chatbot? So how did the development of that go? Was that something that you created, or you hired a CTO to do, or how did that evolve?
So I'm very lucky. The three founders of Humaxa, we all have a technical background. I'm probably the least technical of all three because my background is in cognitive neuroscience and theirs is in. Our CTO Guillermo, he was a graduate student in computer science, AI, machine learning, and he actually dropped out. Which I did not encourage this, but he did drop out in order to help found Humaxa, and our third founder, Gary Saperstein, has 30 years of experience. So we're all technical. We're lucky in that regard because we can kind of fill in each other's gaps. But also just creating this user experience that's not just I think a lot of times when people hear about chatbots, they think about like a customer service chatbot. And this is very different in that it really tries to get to the root of, gosh, Jeff, do you feel stressed out at work? And if you say, well, actually, yeah, I do, it will try to figure out why. Are you stressed out because of your workload, or maybe your coworkers are stressing you out, or maybe it's just you're not sure how to mitigate stress, like you need some stress reduction activities based on what you say. Again, it will try to take action. Would you like to give anonymous feedback to one of your coworkers or a group of coworkers? Or maybe you want to join in a virtual meditation session. It'll keep trying to figure out what's working, and it will use machine learning algorithms, what has worked for other people who've had similar problems in the past, so it'll get better at recommendations, but then it will also figure out for you personally what's been working and not working. So if you say that you're very interested in sales and marketing and communication and negotiation and things like that, it will know that, and it will start to figure out what's going to resonate with you. And every once in a while it'll throw in something completely out there to see, hey, do you want to expand outside of kind of your core interests and where you want your professional development to occur.
So how long did it take to develop that? And I assume that it's a continually evolving tech set, but I'm kind of curious how long that took and how parallel that was with your customer validation, getting out there to see what customers really wanted versus building the tech and how those interplay.
Sure. So I will be the first person to say that when we first released the private beta, it was not good. The first of all, it had no data to go off, so it didn't know what was going to work and not work. And we were constantly making changes and iterating. And I can remember, hopefully this is kind of funny, but I can remember sitting next to a client, and the client was pretending to have participated in a discussion about, I think it was C#. It was a technical discussion.
Okay.
And the chatbot asked, so did you learn something? Would you do it again? And the client responded, it was a great conversation, but I got lonely. Which is a little unusual, but in all honesty, the chatbot should have been able to handle it no problem.
So what did it reply?
It said, that's great news. And I thought, oh no. I wanted to just crawl under the desk and never come out again. But of course, we're so lucky to have these initial beta clients who are very understanding. And, the one good thing is having a misresponse, an inappropriate response like that. It wasn't like, planes were going to crash or something terrible wasn't going to happen. It was just a little bit odd. Yeah, like, oh, that's great news. Lonely is such a strong word. And we realized what we needed to do was open up the neutral response, because the beginning of the sentence was very positive. Oh, it was a great conversation. But I got lonely, and it just didn't know what to do with that. And
so the value of working with a beta customer helps you form the tech there.
Exactly. So then we knew. So we opened up that that kind of neutral response. We were able to more appropriately respond. But honestly, we were in that private beta testing for an entire year. That's how long.
You've just recently come out of that, haven't you? Or
yes.
Where are you at? Well, let's see.
Yes.
Where are you at now as compared to that?
Yes. So we just completed our 1.0 release, which we consider to be our public, taking the product public, really for the first time. And we're really, after this entire year of testing, I finally feel very confident that it provides a ton of value. We're seeing great results. And I think one of the most fascinating things that we've seen so far is that the more awkward and sort of sensitive the topic is in the conversation, the more likely the employee is to open up to this anonymous chatbot.
Really?
And it's a little bit counterintuitive, and that was part of
maybe because it's a bot, not a person.
It is. If you were going to, let's say you wanted to give feedback that you felt like people, maybe from a certain background, weren't being properly recognized. And even if your boss said, hey, Carolyn, how do you feel that we're doing at this organization about, people from all different backgrounds feeling included? And if I wanted to say, I don't think we're doing a very good job of that, it might be a very awkward conversation. But because you can, by default, keep all your conversations anonymous with this chatbot, then what we're seeing is that people are much more likely to kind of open up and give authentic feedback that goes way beyond how do you feel on a scale from 1 to 5.
Is it because they're not being judged, or they know they're not going to be criticized or get backlash on it? What do you think?
It's hard to tell exactly why we're seeing those results, but if I had to guess, I would say a small part of it is that the bot itself has a personality that's very disarming. He's kind of funny and personable and self-deprecating. So, like in the example of the question about diversity and inclusion, there's a whole bunch of different ways that he talks about it, but one possible way is, we bots are all very diverse. Some of us have antennae, some of us are good at data processing, some of us are good at telling jokes, some of it, it kind of lightens up the mood a little bit. And so our guess is that maybe, but then it'll switch and say, but diversity and inclusion is no joking matter. I really would like to know how you feel about how we're doing here. And so that might be a little part of it, but honestly, I think probably the biggest part of it is that it takes action based on what you say. So if you say, gosh, I don't feel like we're doing a good job of making people from diverse backgrounds feel included, it might suggest, hey, we have these open positions. Can you think of anyone from a diverse background who might be a good fit? And it will link out to that. Or maybe it will say something like, gosh, maybe you could take some time to thank and recognize somebody from a diverse background who's maybe been looked over or something. And so it will try to, no one's incentivized to lie or to make things sound better than they are if they really feel like there's an opportunity to improve because it's going to take action.
So without getting too far into the technical aspects
Sure.
of it, how does this then link to the management? So like you said, it was anonymized. So how does then the management get this input from these conversations with
Sure.
the bot and do anything with that?
Sure. So on the back end, the data is being tracked in 18 different dimensions. All things that we know play into making people feel engaged and perform the best that they can on the job. And as it's tracking all this data, you can set thresholds when the data starts going the wrong direction. Once it reaches a certain threshold, it will start throwing flags for the administrator of the system or administrators of the system and say, heads up, this is where you need to look. These are the things that are performing well, and these are the things that really require attention, and then it will let you dig into the depth of what people are saying.
It's more of a meta report than to give them a broad sense of the climate in the organization.
Yeah, I mean, it starts high level, but then you can drill into much more. You can drill into the actual comments that people are making. You can drill into, because it doesn't just look at the comments, it also looks for theme, it looks for keywords, and it looks for sentiment and gravity of the sentiment. So if someone comes in and says, hey, we're doing a terrible job with whatever, it will bubble that up to the top. It filters based on strength of feeling also. And so, and if that person has chosen to put their name down, it gives the manager or the leader or the administrator the option to reach out straight away.
So maybe a metaphor is going on. It really gives them some insights into kind of the climate of their organization.
Yes.
It's like a long-range weather forecast for a weather forecast. In the past, 100 years ago, we couldn't see what was coming.
Right.
This allows them with some data to see some broader themes. Oh, there's a storm system dropping down from this division over here, and they're going to interact with that division over there, and there's going to be a big storm. Interesting.
Right. So it saves time not having to look at all the data, but zeroing in on where the biggest opportunity is, and it uses several different algorithms to kind of point people to that, pay attention here. And the whole reason, of course, is then to prevent people from leaving, prevent performance issues, prevent people from kind of checking out, physically still at work, but kind of checking out. Prevents all these things from happening in the first place is the goal.
So you just opened up from your beta to your official launch. So I assume you have a set of beta customers. You're working into a set of customers now. Maybe talk a little about that customer set. Any realizations or challenges you faced in that. I think you said earlier you had a surprise as far as what kinds of organizations were finding the most traction out of it.
Yeah. So when we first started soliciting for beta customers, we thought we were going to be targeting more small to mid-sized organizations, which frankly, I mean, it works well in the 50 to 200 employee size companies. However, what we're seeing recently is kind of pull from the market that's more upmarket, over 1,000 employees. We're still talking with an organization right now. It started with 800 employees, and all of a sudden it went up to 25,000 employees. And I have no idea what's going to happen, but now we're talking 144,000 employees. So I don't know exactly where that's all going to go, but the point is, it seems like because the solution itself and the technology itself was built to be horizontally scalable, there's really no upper limit to how we could scale, but bring the value of building this workplace community where people feel valued and perform their best. The larger the organization, the more fractures, the more silos start occurring, especially when an organization is not all located in one office building, in one place. Those kind of, the dissonance between these different employee groups kind of starts to come into play. And what we found is our solution works very well to bring that together and to be able to see data and connect people in ways that is possible with the way that employees like to work and expect to work today. They expect to work flexibly. They expect to be able to work remotely in some cases. They expect to be listened to and be heard.
So with technology, a solution that is so broadly applicable with so many countries, not only here in Sacramento, but geographically everywhere, what was your go-to-market strategy? Who did you prioritize as far as reaching out? Was it your local? Was it a certain industry? What's your kind of plan as far as that?
So I was very lucky in that I already had 17 years of experience in HR technology, so I knew a lot of people, which is a good thing and it's also a bad thing. The good thing is I already kind of knew people who I thought I could get on board to try this out, and was very lucky to have found partners who were willing to give us a try very early on.
So those connections have basically been critical for you.
Yes, definitely. It would definitely help having been in the industry for some time. The bad part is that if that's not scalable, now, so you talk about go-to-market strategy, now we're looking at, okay, there's only so many people Carolyn knows. What's our next, and I think that I'm sure most startups find this, there's a lot of experimentation that goes on with that. You kind of see where you're starting to get resonance. Right? Yeah, places, again, that were a little bit of surprise. We started having some conversations with manufacturing organizations. And one of the things we found is that, for example, industrial engineers are in high demand and require a lot of training, especially initially coming into an organization. It's very expensive to hire very good industrial engineers, and you don't want them to leave. And it seemed like in that particular vertical, there were some problems that we could help with. That was a little bit of a surprise, but again, through experimentation, we're kind of figuring out where resonance occurs, and then we shift and change our go-to-market strategies just a little bit.
Okay, so a couple different questions popping in my brain. Let's talk about what do you think is the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome so far in the journey?
That's a really good question. I would say the number one challenge that we've had is people's sort of innate discomfort with AI, with artificial intelligence, with machine learning. Part of it might even be what do people see in the movies, Yeah. I literally had somebody ask me, Carolyn, is your AI chatbot going to go out and tell all my employees to go find a job somewhere else? And I thought, oh gosh,
So there's got to be some educational component to,
sure.
You've got to explain all this.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah. And even just the concept of a chatbot, some people are just immediately turned off by that because their vision of what a chatbot is, let me, press 1 for customer service, press 2 for... Right, exactly, which is this horrible example that, we don't really want to be compared to. And we've taken great measures to overcome that in order to make it fun and meaningful for people to provide authentic feedback. But there's still a lot of, communication that needs to occur. And people need to feel comfortable. They need to trust the technology. Both from the employee side and the employer side. They need to know that it's working on their behalf and that there's a win-win happening.
And now it's probably easier for you. You can actually show you've got the text for the line, you've got some data, you've got some examples of these case studies that you can show the benefit and the value there.
Gradually, yes.
Yeah. So that was the biggest challenge. What's the biggest win that you've had? The biggest celebration you've been able to, or biggest thing you can celebrate now this early? Because you're pretty early still.
Oh yeah. Gosh, I think the data itself, the fact that people are so much more willing to engage with the chatbot assistant, we didn't know how that was going to happen. And the fact that, people, one of the things they can do when the chatbot first introduces itself, it'll try to find out a little bit like what people are interested in, where their career aspirations lie. But one of the very first thing it says is, how often should I be able to contact you? And one of the choices is never. And there's a small percentage of the population that chooses never. Of course, they can reach out to it anytime they want, but it will not reach out to them if they put never. And what we're seeing, which is very interesting, is people find out about activities or mentoring sessions or things that are going on who have maybe put never. And then, gosh, Jeff, how did you know about that happening? Oh, the chatbot told you? Oh, well, maybe I'll go in and change how often he can contact me, things like that. Cool. So, it's still very much in the initial stages, but I'll say just seeing some of those changing behaviors is a small win, but a good win for us.
So we're in the end of September. What's on your horizon what's in your works for now, from now to the end of the year?
Sure. We've got an extremely packed schedule for the next 4 weeks. So in the very beginning of October, we're headed to Las Vegas for arguably one of the largest HR technology conferences in the world. It's called HR Tech, and we're a vendor there. And then we're immediately coming back to Sacramento, and then the very next week we're going to be a vendor at the AI Dev conference in San Jose.
Okay.
And then the week after that, I'm giving a presentation at the Disrupt HR event in San Francisco. And I think things will, around the middle of October, things will kind of start dying down a little bit as far as our just crazy schedule. But really, we're hoping to connect with as many organizations as we can that need our help, that have expensive turnover, or they're concerned about the future of the employees, how they feel, maybe their jobs are changing, how can we help people perform the best that they can on the jobs and feel good about it. And so we'd, of course, love to work with more organizations.
Great segue. So how do people find you? How can people connect with you if they're intrigued by this, from watching, listening to this, or at those trade shows?
Sure. So our website is www.humaxa.com.
Humaxa.
Just like it sounds. And I'm Carolyn Peer, and my email address is carolyn.peer@humaxa.com. I'm easy to find. I'm all over Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, the web.
Are you using social media a lot and finding traction on that for Humaxa?
Definitely from feedback and sharing kind of where we're going to be, what's going on, what results we're seeing. We also try to share that out on our blog, which is on our website.
Humaxa.com. And so what's your top traction-wise social media platform? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram?
Oh gosh, it's
just trying to give people options if they wanted to follow.
Right. Well, the way that we have kind of set up right now, all roads lead to our website, and then of course it's possible to get in touch with us easily on the website, request a demo, ask a question, find out more information, check out our blog. Kind of, that's probably the easiest way. But email works well, or tweet me, or reach out on LinkedIn, all those good.
So you get through all this roadshow portion, and trying to make connections and basically get people, eyes on your product. Where do you see yourself? Let's say that happens. Where do you see yourself a year from now? Say, what's your vision or your hope to be down the road a little bit?
Sure. Well, one of the first and foremost things is we believe very strongly that our application should come to you, and that you shouldn't have to go and download an application. You don't need to download anything. You just need to exist in whatever technology you're using, whether it's Slack or Microsoft or text chat. So we are building those integrations.
So you're building APIs to latch into Slack or whatever platform.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we did that mostly based on feedback that we were hearing from our initial user group was, we don't want to have to go download another app. Oh, Okay, well, what apps do you already have? Oh, we use Slack. Okay, great. We'll come to you right in your Slack channel, and that's how
Does that make the install and onboarding a little bit more onerous on your part, though?
No, it doesn't. It takes 5 clicks.
Really? Wow.
It takes 5 clicks to install. Yeah. Now, setting it up and kind of customizing it, asking the right questions, that's a conversation that we have with each of our clients to make sure that it's going to be a successful implementation. But yeah, the actual technology is easy.
So I wanted to kind of go back to the product a little bit. At your pitch, I remember seeing almost a year ago, it seems like you had some savings. So this is basically providing savings for the clients. So give us some numbers out there. So how much can people expect to save through employee retention by using Humaxa?
So the example I like to give is if you have a 100 employee company, if we can stop one person from leaving in 2 years who otherwise would have left, you break even. And everything else on top of that, and all the intangibles about people being more engaged on the job and sharing knowledge with other people and being able to perform better and all those things, those are all just extras that come along with it. So and then time is, honestly, time is one of the biggest savings. The amount of time it takes to implement any kind of a survey and wait for all that data, and even on my own teams having to beg them to please go take these surveys. Can you please go take these surveys? It would take weeks and weeks, and then we'd have to wait more weeks to get all the data, and then have a meeting about the data that we saw, how to present it out, and then have another meeting about, okay, this is the actual presentation of the data, and then have another meeting about putting together an action plan, and then another meeting to follow up and see, how's the action plan coming along? The amount of time administratively that we spent rolling this out, gathering the data, processing all that data, and then rolling out the action plan. We like to say it takes it from 8 weeks to 8 seconds. It's like that.
It seems to me, I worked at a really large company for several years at Boeing. In big companies like that, hundreds of thousands of people, it seems like the insights that the data from this could provide is to the management there, as far as problems percolating over here in this division and over that in that organization, could just be priceless if they could kind of get that forecast of, something's going wrong over here, and be able to see that would be a killer application for the management or middle management over there.
Yeah, that's our goal. Make it easy, make it fun, make it easy, make it worthwhile.
So I wanted to switch gears just a little bit and talk a little bit about your experiences here in the Sacramento startup region. So what has been helpful for you as a startup launching here in the region? What's been helpful? What do we need here in the community that we don't have?
Sure. So I moved to the Sacramento area in 2006, and I moved from the Bay Area, and I'll tell you, there were some really unexpected benefits of coming here that I didn't anticipate. I knew, that the traffic was going to be less and things like that, and maybe the prices would be a little better and things like that. But I'll tell you, what I didn't realize is how much I had going on in my brain when I lived in the Bay Area, just to do the most basic things like go get groceries. Like, oh, I can't go get groceries now, it's 5 o'clock. It'll take me 3 hours to just go get groceries. Or, oh, I'd really like to see that person over in Oakland. Oh no, there's a bridge. Oh, there's a bridge. Can't go there. No, can't do it. But this constant trying to juggle all the pieces. The first thing that really impressed me when I moved to Sacramento is, wow, I have all this extra space in my head that I don't have to think about all these other logistical things that you do when you come from a big city like, it's probably not just San Francisco, but the Bay Area in general. And I could think so much clearer. That part is fantastic. It's a smaller community. The startup community is smaller. It feels more like a family. You go to an event here and you're like, oh, I know all those people. It is great because people, I think, when they feel like a family, they feel more, they want to help each other more than they do if you're just a stranger. And part of when I used to attend events in the Bay Area, they were good events, but it wasn't always the same people, so everyone was oh, hi, my name's Carolyn. This is, it was always new people.
Mm-hmm.
It was harder to make connections. And it was also kind of fragmented. Like the San Francisco people didn't initially talk to the Peninsula people, and they didn't talk to the East Bay people, and then there was the South Bay people. Here, it's smaller, but it's kind of centrally, you get people together and everybody kind of knows each other, which is great.
Good to hear, yeah. All right, so any last things shout outs or asks of the local community or startups out there, or anybody for that matter?
Well, I'm just a really big believer in helping other people and hoping that other people will help us too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would love to do that and continue to do that, whether it's helping other people get introduced. I can make introductions, or maybe people are willing to introduce me or introduce Humaxa to organizations that would benefit from partnering with us or using our product. We would love to do that.
That sounds great. Awesome. Congratulations on launching a successful startup, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
All right.